Hello, welcome to my video for Bonsai Empire. Congratulations on reaching 15 years. And part of the Ask the Experts video series, somebody decided to ask me a question, so here we go. Questions from P. Daniels of Belgium. And over time, leaves of deciduous bonsai get smaller. Why does this happen, and how can I achieve it? Now, unfortunately, we're in December now, and it's probably the worst time to be talking about deciduous bonsai because I'm sure you can see from behind me all of the trees have lost their leaves. However, this is a very good question, and the answer to this is 50% of the sort of the leaf reduction comes from the DNA of the tree, and 50% of it comes from the actual sort of horticultural processes and things that we can do. Trees, like people, have DNA, and each individual tree has slightly different characteristics. So not every Japanese maple is exactly the same. Right? So some trees have slightly larger leaves, some trees have slightly smaller leaves. Some trees may turn a better colour in the autumn, some trees maybe have stronger roots. It's exactly the same as humans, so all trees have different sort of DNA characteristics. One of the things that the Japanese bonsai community understood very early on was the importance of this sort of DNA, and so they selected species and sort of subspecies of each individual tree and cultivated those. However, even with all those years of experiences, there are a lot of trees in Japan that were made with DNA characteristics that were perhaps not as desirable. So you see this quite often with trident maples. Some trident maples have very small leaves. Some of them have quite coarse leaves. No matter how hard you work on them, those with the really coarse leaves won't tend to get too small. And so there is a certain amount of sort of predisposed DNA in this equation of how to get small leaves. The other aspect to getting small leaves is things that we can do as bonsai practitioners. Now this basically comes down to stopping the tree from growing, okay? Restricting its growth. We can do that through various different ways. One of them is through how frequently we repot the tree. And so as a tree starts to get older, we want to be repotting it less and less frequently. Trying to build up a very mature root ball. Once the tree has developed a mature root ball, then it's going to start to develop mature branches. And once it starts to develop mature branches, the leaf size starts to reduce. Okay? So that's one aspect of it, so not repotting too frequently. The other aspect is to not fertilise. Not fertilise too heavily, particularly in the spring. One of the biggest misconceptions about growing deciduous bonsai is that we need to fertilise in the spring. Okay, so we're looking to try and reduce internode length, to try and not get it to grow too much, and yet people are still fertilising it in the spring and it's growing off like crazy because you're asking it to do one thing and telling it to do another. And so really sort of laying off the fertiliser until all of the new growth is hardened off. This is another aspect of trying to get small leaves. So not giving it the ability to grow too much. The other aspect is species dependent. So for some species of deciduous trees we can do this. For other species we don't, and that's to defoliate. Okay, so removing the leaves once they've hardened off, which is usually around May, June time, depending on where you are in the world. So once the leaves have hardened off, we can cut them off, and then we get a second flush of growth. And that second flush of growth is generally a lot smaller, so we get smaller leaves. However, this is a bit of a risky procedure to do with every single tree and with every single leaf, because effectively what we're doing is we're taking off the tree's ability to generate any energy, and so we are, in a sense, we're weakening it. For species such as Zelkova, such as this one here, we get very sort of fine ramification because this is a very strong tree. The same is true for Chinese elms. And so lots and lots of defoliation is possible through this. They actually enjoy it. They come back very vigorously, and so this is a species where sort of defoliation throughout the year will help us to get very sort of small leaf size and increase the fine ramification. Trident maples, this is a piece of trident maple material that's still yet to be pruned and wired and stuff yet, so please excuse that. But trident maples are another species where we can defoliate quite heavily, particularly if it's a vigorous young tree. The older a tree gets, the less you want to be defoliating. Japanese maples are another tree where we can defoliate in order to get smaller leaf size, but again, unless you live in somewhere that's got a lot of sun and the trees are super vigorous, then I generally recommend not to defoliate too much. Other trees that we use for bonsai, for example, this is a Korean hornbeam. This is a variety where we wouldn't be looking to defoliate. If you defoliate these, then you seriously weaken it, and you're going to cause some branch dieback and things. So defoliating Korean hornbeams, European hornbeams as well, things like oak. These are species where we don't look to defoliate throughout the year, and so in order to get a small leaf size on that, you need to start off with something which is genetically has small leaves, and then really restrict the growth. And so you can see just how shallow this pot is in here, and so really sort of restricting the growth on this tree. This tree gets no fertiliser throughout the year, and then that way we can try and get it to have smaller leaves.